The Crystal Gala in Vancouver was the kind of event where the champagne cost more than a Honda Civic. It was a sea of tuxedos, designer gowns, and superficial smiles. Standing near the chocolate fountain was the Sterling family, Robert and Linda Sterling, owners of a struggling tech firm, and their 22-year-old son, Brad. Brad was the definition of spoiled, arrogant, loud, and drunk on his parents' money. Brad was bored. He leaned against a pillar, swirling a glass of expensive red Merlot. "This party is dead," he complained loudly. "Where are the important people? We're supposed to meet the CEO of Horizon to save your company, right?" Robert hushed him. "Keep your voice down. The deal is worth $780 million. If we sign tomorrow, we own the market. Behave." Just then, a woman walked by. She was stunning, wearing a simple but elegant white silk dress. Her hair was in natural curls, her makeup minimal. She was Amara King. She wasn't wearing flashy diamonds like the other wives. She moved with a quiet confidence that Brad mistook for he assumed she was staff, or maybe a nobody trying to network. Brad, laughing at a joke he made to himself, spun around recklessly. The red wine flew out of his glass. It splashed across Amara's white dress like a gunshot wound. The crimson liquid soaked into the silk instantly, ruining the pristine fabric. The music seemed to stop. Amara froze, looking down at the disaster spreading across her chest. A normal person would apologize. A normal person would grab napkins. But Brad Sterling wasn't normal. He looked at Amara and laughed. "Whoops," he sneered, not looking sorry at all. "You should watch where you're going. You just made me spill a vintage." Robert and Linda turned around. They saw the stain. They saw the black woman standing there, shocked. Instead of scolding their son, the Sterlings chuckled. "Oh, Brad, you're so clumsy," Linda said, dismissing Amara with a wave of her hand. She looked at Amara with disdain. "Don't just stand there, honey. Go find the bathroom and clean yourself up. Or, better yet, leave. You look like a disaster. I hope you weren't planning on serving drinks looking like that." The insult was sharp and dubious. They assumed she was a server because of her race and her lack of ostentatious jewelry. Amara took a deep breath. She felt the cold wine on her skin and the hot shame of the room SEIs on her. But she didn't scream. She didn't cause a scene. She simply looked Brad in the eye. "Accidents happen," Amara said, her voice calm but steel-hard. "But manners are a choice. You might regret that choice." Brad laughed harder. "Regret, lady? Do you know who we are? My dad is buying this city. Go dry off." Amara nodded slowly. She reached into a purse, pulled out a tissue, dabbed the worst of it, and walked away with her head high. "Can you believe the attitude on the help these days?" Robert muttered, straightening his tie. "Forget her. We need to find the CEO of Horizon. No one knows what he looks like, but rumors say he's here. We need to impress him." They spent the next hour schmoozing, looking for a white man in a suit who looked powerful. Amara went to the washroom. She stared at herself in the mirror. The dress was ruined. It was a custom piece, hand-sewn by her grandmother. She felt tears prick her eyes, but she swallowed them. She wasn't here to cry. She was here to do business. She took a blazer from a Cara Sharp black power blazer and put it over the dress. She returned to the ballroom. The Sterlings were still there, loud and obnoxious. They hadn't found the CEO yet. Amara stood near the stage, watching them. She saw how they treated the waiter's snapping fingers, avoiding eye contact. She saw who they really were. They weren't just rude to her. They were rude to anyone they deemed beneath them. The host of the gala, the mayor, took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed into the microphone, "tonight is a special night. We are here to celebrate the biggest merger in Canadian tech history, a $780 million contract that will change our industry." The Sterlings beamed, they clinked glasses. This was it. This was their moment. "Please welcome the genius behind Horizon Corp," the mayor continued. "A woman who built her empire from a basement in Scarborough to a global powerhouse, Ms. Amara Kingi." The spotlight swung across the room. It didn't land on a man in a tuxedo. It landed on the woman in the wine-stained dress covered by a black blazer. The applause was deafening, but the Sterling family went silent. Robert dropped his glass. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. Brad turned a shade of pale that looked almost green. They watched in horror as the nobody they had laughed at walked up the stairs to the stage. She took the microphone, smiling that same calm, dangerous smile. "Thank you," Mr. Mayor, Amara said, her voice amplified through the speakers. "I love this city. I love the people. But tonight, I was reminded that money does not buy class." She paused. The room went quiet. Amara looked directly at the table where the Sterlings were standing. Business is about partnership. It's about shared values. It's about respect. "I was scheduled to sign a very large contract tonight," Amara continued, "with a company called Sterling Solutions." The crowd cheered, thinking it was an announcement. Robert Sterling started to breathe again. He thought, she's a professional. She won't let a personal insult stop a $780 million deal. "We're safe," Amara continued. "But an hour ago, a young man threw wine on me. His parents told me to go clean up and assumed I was the help." The crowd gasped. Whispers erupted like wildfire. All eyes turned to the Sterlings. They looked like deer in headlights. Brad tried to hide behind his mother. "I built Horizon on the principle that every person has value," Amara said, her voice ringing with authority. "From the janitor to the board director. If a potential partner cannot treat a stranger with basic human decency, how will they treat my employees? How will they treat my customers?" She reached into her blazer pocket. She pulled out a thick document. The contract. Robert's eyes widened. That was his salvation. That was his debt relief. That was his future. Amara held it up for everyone to see. "Mr. Sterling, you spent all night looking for the CEO? Well, you found her. And I found out who you are." Amara ripped the contract in half, then in quarters. The sound of the tearing paper was louder than the music. "Horizon Corp does not do business with bullies," she stated. She let the pieces of paper fall to the stage floor like confetti. "Consider the deal terminated immediately." The room erupted. Shock, applause, laughter. The humiliation the Sterlings had inflicted on Amara was now being returned to them tenfold on a public stage. Robert Sterling collapsed into a chair, head in his hands. Linda was sobbing, screaming at Brad. "You idiot. You ruined us." Brad stood there, shaken, the arrogant sneer wiped off his face forever. Amara walked off the stage. She didn't stay to gloat. She walked straight toward the exit. The mayor tried to stop her, but she signaled she was done. As she passed the Sterling's table, Robert jumped up. "Miss Keene, please." "It was a misunderstanding. My son, ... he's young. We can fix this. Please. My company will go bankrupt." Amara stopped. She looked at Robert, then at Linda, then at Brad. "Your son is 22, Mr. Sterling. He's not a child. He's a product of his raising. You didn't correct him when he humiliated me, you joining. That tells me everything I need to know about your corporate culture. But the money, ... double quotes, Robert pleaded, grabbing at straws. "We can settle. I'll buy you 1,000 dresses. I'll donate to your charity." Amara laughed. A genuine, light sound. "Mr. Sterling, that dress cost $200. The fabric wasn't expensive, but the dignity of the woman wearing it, that is priceless. And you can't afford me." She walked out of the gala. The valet brought her car. She drove to a diner, ordered a milkshake and fries, and sat alone in her blazer, feeling lighter than she had in years. She had walked away from $780 million of potential revenue.
Yes.
But she had kept her soul. And to Amara, that was the only profit that mattered. The fallout was immediate. The news cycle picked up the story. CEO destroys bullies with one rip. The video of her speech went viral. Horizon Corp stock didn't drop. It skyrocketed. People wanted to buy from a company with a backbone. Amara became a hero for everyone who had ever been mistreated by a snub. The Sterlings faced a different fate. Investors panicked. If Horizon wouldn't work with them, no one would. Their stock plummeted 40% the next morning. By the end of the week, creditors were calling. Robert Sterling was forced to step down as CEO by his own board. His reputation was toxic. Brad became a social pariah. His friends stopped inviting him to parties. He was known as the wine kid. He couldn't get a job in the city. Every time he applied, the hiring manager would Google him and see the video of Amara's speech. He learned the hard way that arrogance has a price tag, and his was exactly $780 million. Months later, Amara was walking through the financial district. She saw a young man working at a coffee cart. He was wearing a green apron, cleaning a spill on the counter. It was Brad. He looked different, humbled, tired. He looked up and saw her. He froze. 30 Amara could have kept walking. She could have laughed, but she wasn't like them. She walked up to the counter. "Medium latte, oat milk, please," she said politely. Brad's hands shook as he made the coffee. He couldn't look her in the eye. He handed her the cup. "That will be $6, he whispered. Amara put a $20 bill in the tip jar. "Keep the change," she said. Brad looked up, tears in his eyes. "Why?" he asked. "After what I did." "Because everyone deserves a chance to learn," Amara said. "I hope you're learning, Brad. The view is different from the other side of the counter, isn't it?" Brad nodded, shame burning his cheeks. "Yes, ma'am, it is." "Good," Amara said. "Work hard. Be kind. And maybe one day you'll learn respect. It's the one thing Daddy's money couldn't buy you." She walked away, sipping her coffee. She realized that the wine stain had been a blessing. It exposed the rot before she signed the contract. It saved her from a toxic partnership. Sometimes, the worst moments in our lives are actually protections in disguise. Horizon Corp continued to grow. Amara started a mentorship program for underprivileged youth. She taught them business, but mostly she taught them character. A CEO who can't say thank you to the janitor is not a leader, she would tell them. They are just a person with a title. The story of the wine spill became a legend in the business schools of Canada. Professors used it as a case study on reputation risk, but for Amara, it was just a Tuesday. She kept the ruined dress. She hung it in her office, framed in glass. Under the dress, there was a small plaque. It didn't say revenge. It said, "The cost of arrogance." It was a reminder to herself and everyone who entered her office: never get too big to be kind, never get too rich to be human. Robert and Linda Sterling eventually divorced. The stress of the bankruptcy broke their marriage. They blamed each other, but deep down, they knew the truth. They had raised a son to be cruel because they were cruel. They were the architects of their own destruction. Brad eventually went back to school. He studied social work. He realized he didn't want to be a tech mogul. He wanted to understand the people he used to mock. It took him 10 years to rebuild his life, but he became a decent man. The spill washed away his ego. Amara met Brad again, years later, at a charity event. He wasn't drinking wine. He was volunteering. He nodded to her from across the room. A respectful nod. She nodded back. The cycle was closed. Justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about transformation. We often think power is about how much we can take, how many companies we can buy, how many people we can boss around. But true power is about how we react when we are disrespected. Amara showed the world that silence is loud and dignity is the ultimate weapon. So, the next time someone spills wine on you metaphorically or literally, don't scream. Don't fight, wait, watch, and remember that the truth always comes out. Karma is a patient guest, but she always pays her tab. If this story fired you up, if you believe in justice and integrity, smash that like button. Let's show the world that character counts. Comment, respect is free down below if you agree. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder to stay humble. You never know who you are talking to. The person serving your coffee might hold your future in their hands. Thanks for watching, family. Subscribe for more stories of truth. See you in the next one.